So we're continuing the Elbaph flashback, of course, and we're getting an update on what had happened with Harold. And of course, it has something to do with Emu. We're going to get some Emu updates in this chapter as well. So let's just get into it because we're almost at the end of the flashback here. Like, seriously. Ida died in a snowy day. Harold and Hyrule cried for her, and Loki suffered in silence while he was prisoned. So unfortunately, Ida has died, as we expected. First of all, she is a mother in this series, so she was doomed from the start. But also we saw in the previous chapter that the people that come from Loki's mother's tribe, Estrid, had poisoned her. And Loki ransacked their village for doing that and accepted that Ida was like his true mother, as he should. But we were unsure if she was gonna die, but yeah, she's dead now. Rest in peace. 14 years ago, Shanks was supposed to get the Deep Sea Pact, but he didn't appear. Instead, they decided Harold will be promoted for Deep Sea Pact and became a Knight of God. So this is an interesting development for sure. So we found out in the previous chapter that amongst the highest ranks of the world government, there's like 3 pacts that you can make with Emu. These lead to you becoming a God Blade, a Holy Knight or God Knight, and a Gorosei. And these pacts are, at least by the fan translations, Shallow Sea Contract, the one that Shanks and Harold got, the Deep Sea Contract, and the Deep Sea Contract. But to be honest, I like the Viz's translations better, like the official translations, because they refer to them as the Shallows Covenant, the Depths Covenant, and the Abyssal Covenant. So we saw that Shanks had visited Marijois 15 years ago, where he was essentially like undercover, posing as if he wanted to be a celestial dragon and become a god knight along with his brother Shamrock and father Garling. He had some ulterior motive for being there, trying to gather information of some kind, and we'll get more into that. But he was supposed to become a holy knight or a god knight with the second level of the contract, but he didn't show up because, he's Shanks. I don't know if he found out what he was supposed to, but he eventually left for some reason. And I guess this goes into the beginning of the flashback, which we saw 14 years ago, and we're going to come back to this. But when he was talking to Scopper asked him, like, how much do you know about King Harold? And Shanks was like, yeah, I met him in Marijois. We got along all right. As we saw in the previous chapter, they did meet. And Shanks was like, but there was something we couldn't talk about in the Holy Land. So if he's back home, I'd like to meet him and discuss it before it's too late. So that right there tells us a lot while also telling us nothing. Classic Oda. But we're seeing that Harold was a full-blown holy knight, which is crazy, but I mean, it's expected. Harold's trying to do everything that he possibly can to get in the good graces of the world government because he feels that that will atone for the crimes of the giants, the 1,000 years of them being bad guys or whatever. Especially because in the previous chapter, the Gorosei told Harold that if he did become a holy knight, that Elbaph will be allowed to join the world government. So I guess they kind of just kept moving the goalpost after this. Hey, also guys, if you haven't already, can you please subscribe? We're almost at 300,000. I know we can get there before the end of the year. We got about 29 days left. I'm always covering these spoilers. You will always see these spoilers at the beginning of the week in your sub box, and then you'll see the rest of my coverage throughout the week. So please subscribe, guys, if you haven't already. And also, like the video. Let's try to get 3,000 likes on this video. It'll help it. It'll help me. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Harold gained more power and immortality. Emu ordered Harold to create the Abyss Circle in Elbaph, and afterwards, Emu ordered him to create a giant army for the government. So that tells us a lot, which is going to lead us into how all of this started and ended. So first of all, Harold gaining more power and immortality, this lines up with the Holy Knights. So they are more powerful as a result of them gaining the Deep Sea Contract or the Depths Covenant, and they gain immortality. Now, immortality is not the same as the immortality that the Gorosei have, because we saw that the Holy Knights do have like that regeneration. So I guess that's what that's implying here, because the Gorosei have that, but they also just stop aging altogether. As to where we saw that the Holy Knights do age. Obviously with Garling, he got older. but Gunko didn't. So I don't know why that is. It still remains to be seen how that works. Unless Gunko does age, because we haven't really like fully seen her face. And women just age differently in this series depending on how much Oda likes them. But as for Imu ordering Harold to create an abyss circle in Elbaph, I'm assuming this is the abyss circle that we saw in the throne room. And then afterwards, Imu ordered him to create a giant army for the government. This of course lines up with what Imu ultimately wanted for Elbaph. And this also lines up with how the flashback started 14 years ago. Because it says that Loki has returned to a Rust Castle and he meets Jarl there and he's like, you know, what does Harold want with me anyway? I have no interest in a man who'd sell his soul to the world government. These are the people who killed Rox. If Elbaph is going in that direction, they'll make an enemy out of me. So when this chapter was released like 6 months ago, pretty crazy, we've been in this flashback for half a year. We didn't fully know what to make of this, but now we do. It's because he knows Harold became a holy knight and that Imu has ordered him to make an army for him. Although I don't think Loki fully knows the details because Harold was always reluctant to do that anyway. He was trying to turn Elbaph into a peaceful nation, not even having the children know of any of that stuff and just bring them up as scholars essentially. Because going further into this conversation, Loki says, it's how you ended up with peace-addicted children with no idea how to swing a weapon. So that's more so what he was referring to here. But he was just upset that Harold became a holy knight because, as he says, these are the people who killed Rox. And he was more on the nose than what we thought because it literally was the holy knights in Garling that killed Rox. Now, how does Loki know that? I don't know. Maybe he's just simply referring to the world government in general killing Rox. And then the chapter ends with Loki and Jarl arriving to the castle. So now we're coming full circle, coming back to this sequence that we just talked about 14 years ago. So I guess in the next chapter, we're going to see what leads to Harold getting killed here. Because right after this conversation, they bust into the throne room and see Harold getting stabbed by his guards. And as we've talked about many times before, and we're going to be talking about it like 2 more times this week, so bear with me guys, but Harold is clearly Dami reversing here. I guess it's because he ultimately refused Imu's orders. And then Loki winds up killing Harold, I'm assuming by his request. I guess it's supposed to parallel to Rox asking Roger and Garp to kill him. Because Harold was essentially just as strong as Rox, so he can probably somewhat power through the Dami Reversi a little bit to like voice of all things to Loki. But during all of this, something winds up happening to where the throne door gets blocked. Jarl gets stabbed in the head with seemingly Harold's sword. Then the chains are broken off of like this treasure room or something, and we see this silhouette walking towards the quote-unquote treasure of Elbaph, the forbidden devil fruit. So someone shows up there. I don't know if it's Imu themselves, probably a holy knight, I'm guessing, or it could even be a Gorosei, probably a holy knight, because, you know, the Abyss Circle is set up there, so they can freely go back and forth as they choose. So probably a holy knight shows up there. It could be Garling, maybe Shamrock, but they try to get the forbidden devil fruit, but something happens and then Loki winds up eating it. I guess as a way to prevent this person from stealing it, because we know that Loki does eat the fruit. Towards the beginning of this arc, when the Straw Hats are hearing about Loki from this random giant guy, he says that Loki has got a few screws loose. His desperate desire for the legendary devil fruit passed down through the Elbaph line led him to kill his father, King Harold, and eat the fruit. Obviously, that's misinformation and propaganda, but that's very common in One Piece. So he for sure ate this fruit, and what it is, we still don't know. Speculation is that it's like an analog to the Nika fruit, because he refers to himself as the sun god, but we'll see what happens with that. We'll talk way more about this if we get the full summary tomorrow, because we also have to discuss Shanks and what's going on with him during this part of the story. So again, please subscribe for that if you haven't already, guys. Let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments, and if you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.